นับสนุนโดยพลังของทุกคนร่วมก่อเกิดเป็น AIA เราคือพลังสร้างอนาคตชีวิตดีๆมีให้เซอร์ไพรส์ได้ทุกวัยโฟโมสดื่มได้ตลอดดื่มเลยIsuzu Mu 7 Super Platinum เติมเต็มความสุขสนุกกับชีวิตมีสไตล์น้ำดื่มสะอาดน้ำดื่มตราสิงห์
Thank you so much for your time with us today. When we talk about Dr. Edward de Bono, most of us would think about the 6 thinking hats.
Yes.
That was published 25 years ago.
I think
1985.
85. Now that's very widely used. Last year I was told by a Nobel Prize economist, he said last week he was in Washington, top economics meeting in the United States, they're using the 6 hats.
Really?
And in New York, a colleague of mine was training juries in law courts using the 6 hats. Using the 6 hats, they reached unanimous decisions very quickly. The judges were so impressed that in at least 3 states, I'm not sure which ones, the judge can now ask that the jury be trained in the 6 hats. That's the first change in the jury system for 1,000 years.
Wow. So it is still valid today, despite the fact that we're living in an internet world and everyone would just
even more
puts
valid.
out Google.
Even more valid, because what happens now with the internet world, we believe that you don't have to think, that information is going to do the thinking for you.
Yes.
That's very dangerous. Even with youngsters in school, you give them computers and they start saying, no, we don't have to think, you just have to search for the answer. That's dangerous.
Why is it dangerous?
Because in the real world, you've got to think. Just searching is useful too, but you've got to think as well.
But you do need the information before you can think.
You need information with which to think, but information doesn't necessarily give you the answer.
So what is special about the 6 thinking hats?
Special is that the underlying reason is physiological, that there are chemicals in the brain which, depending on your mood, they will sensitize certain areas. So if you're in the black hat mood, the negative mood, there's certain areas which are sensitized and so on. And if you try and do everything at once, you just get confusion and you end up just by being negative. So you have to separate out the different styles, different modes of thinking.
Is it just like focusing on something, basically?
Well, it's paying attention. You see, attention and perception are the most important part of thinking. Research by a friend of mine at Harvard showed that 90% of the errors in thinking are errors of perception. Logic is tiny. Perception, how you look at things. And that involves attention, focus, perception.
Can you please give us a crash course in 6 hat thinking?
A crash course, oh my goodness. Well, there's 6 different hats, and the idea is in a meeting everyone wears the same hat. That's very important. That's why it's parallel thinking. Everyone is in parallel. When the white hat is in use, everyone is looking at the information. When the red hat is in use, you're allowed to put forward your feelings, your emotion, your intuition, without having to explain them. Black hat is traditional critical thinking, what's wrong, what's the problem. Yellow hat is looking at values, good things, benefits, values. Green hat is creative, new ideas, possibilities, alternatives. And the blue hat's like a conductor of the orchestra, keeps order, keeps discipline, sets the focus, and puts together the outcome.
So that everyone will be geared into the same direction.
At any one moment. But as everyone covers all the direction, you get a full scan.
give me some concrete examples of how it will work in, say, a business meeting when everyone would fight for their ideas?
Well, a business meeting, for example, in Finland, ABB used to spend 30 days on their multinational project discussions. Using the 6 hats, they do it in 2 days instead of 30 days. JP Morgan in Europe said they reduced their meeting times to 1/10 of what they had been. Because so much meeting time is wasted. People just wanting to make a little point, just trying to show how clever they are and so on. With the 6 hats, you can't do that.
Isn't it more or less like setting up the agenda? Okay, number 1, we'll think about this, and then everyone thinks about the same thing.
It's giving people the opportunity, the challenge, to think fully. Supposing you're at a meeting and you're not very creative, when the green hat is in use, you have 2 choices, either to sit there silently or to make an effort. So people make a creative effort. People are challenged to think more fully.
So 6 hats are enough?
6 hats are enough. Now, the reason is the brain can hold maximum 7 things in perception. After that, it starts subdividing, and that's no good. So 6 hats, and there's 1 spare. If there's a real need for an extra one day, then I can add an extra one.
How did you come up with this idea in the first place?
Well, I started off with lateral thinking, and then it became obvious to me that if, when you had an idea through lateral thinking, people were not able to fully examine the idea, all they wanted to do is just attack little points, then you're never going to get creativity. So the 6 hats is a way of saying, okay, here's the idea, now let's explore it fully and fairly. That's why.
So it started with lateral thinking.
It started with the lateral thinking and ideas, and then, okay, what do we do with ideas? You need to examine them, and 6 hats is the way of doing it.
So what is lateral thinking?
Lateral thinking is deliberate, formal, creative thinking. For 2,400 years, we've believed that creative thinking is some magic gift which some people have, some people don't.
It's not talent.
True. It's a skill which can be learned and used deliberately. Can be very powerful. One afternoon, a workshop in South Africa, just using one of my tools of lateral thinking, just one. In one afternoon, they generated 21,000 new ideas. Now, you can be very talented, you can wait for luck and chance, you're not going to generate 21,000 ideas. It's very powerful.
What is that tool? Can you please tell me?
The tool is random input. Random input says you've got a problem, you just get a word randomly, and as you connect back to the problem, you open up new tracks. It's very simple.
Can you please give me an example so that the audience can understand as well how this lateral thinking actually works?
Well, that's one example of lateral thinking. Another example is provocation. Provocation allows you to say something which at first may sound impossible, but from it you then use movement and move to an idea. I'll give an example. I was in California talking to the ecology department, 500 people, and they said we have a problem with factories on the river, they put out pollution, people downstream suffer. What can we do? Using a provocation, and I invented the word PO, which means provocative operation. I said, PO, the factory is downstream of itself. Sounds impossible. How can a factory be there and downstream of itself? From it comes a very, very simple idea. Okay? We legislate that when you build a factory on the river, your input must be downstream of your own output. So you're the first to get your pollution. That's now become law in 13 countries.
Ah, I see.
ผมรักคุณเสมอจนถึงวันจันทร์
And why only until Monday?
Because if I say that forever, that's not credible, because it's too easy to say. But till Monday is very practical, so you believe me.
But it's too short, until Monday.
If you think it's too short, for you, I'll make an exception. I'll make it longer.
I like forevermore.
Okay.
Forever sounds good, romantic.
We make it forever.
And you can, and how many languages?
Well, I can say I love you forever until next Monday in 33 languages.
This particular
In
sentence.
Russian, я люблю тебя всегда до понедельника. In Polish, ja ci kocham na zawsze do poniedziałku. In Dutch, ich habe Banner, alte Doktor vorher in der Monde. In Swedish, älskar dig för allt det för nästa måndag. French, ett tempo, tenete, ruskanande prochain. Italian, ti amo per sempre, fino all'onde prossimo. Spanish, te quiero per sempre, hasta el próximo lunes. It's useful.
You're someone I'll never fall in love with.
It's useful. It's useful.
Yeah. You're someone I'll never fall in love with. You can say the sentence in too many languages. I don't trust you. How many languages do you actually speak?
I can get by English, Canadian, American, Australian, New Zealand.
All right.